people meet. Well, we'll get to that in just a minute. There's some damage to the interior of the jail. Okay, there's the old courthouse that's now gone. That's the night afterwards that everybody met. And citizens came in to decide what they were going to do. Well, they, first of all, they find out that Mansfield has resigned. Sheriff Mansfield sends a letter of resignation in before his term is up. And they go ahead and nominate Knox Henry to accept being sheriff even before the election results are completed. They are trying to pull, Georgia Woods was Speaker of the House. He was a representative from McMinn County. He was also a member of the Election Commission. He was a part of the Democrat group with Cantrell and Mansfield. They were trying to bring him back because he was on the Election Commission, and if they had him there, they could certify the election. But they were having trouble finding George, of course. And so they appoint these three men it's Joe Cartwright, City Anderson, and Bernie Hampton. They appointed a business owner, a minister, and a politician to be a three-man governing body of McMinn County. There was no county court. There was a sheriff, but all the other offices were defunct. Guys, for 3 days, McMinn County existed completely independent of Nashville and Washington, D.C., and were governed literally by the people that were there, and those three men right there. GIs took over as law enforcement officers, and there's some other photographs of them directing traffic and making arrests and all kinds of different things. And so they finally get Woods. He is the gentleman seated kind of second from the left, seated right there. That's Otto Kennedy on the far left. Otto's brother, Bull Kennedy, is right there on the top. That's Cartwright right there on the right. He was on the election commission too. That's when they're certifying the election 3 days later. Guess who won? All of the GI candidates won overwhelmingly. They certify the election and swear all of those men in to their new offices. Mansfield, of course, returns to Cartersville. I've always been impressed with this picture. That's his daughter on the right. She's a hottie. she could have been a movie star. She was beautiful. And they say that even as an older lady that she still retained a lot of her beauty. But she's just a very attractive lady, just kind of striking in that picture. A couple of days later, Mansfield calls the Kennedy brothers. They were two of the leaders in the GI party, and says, "Hey, I've still got affairs up there. I've still got a house up there. I've got money in the bank. Can I come up and take care of my affairs?" And they let him. They brought him up, drove him around town, took care of everything, shook hands. He goes back to Cartersville, never comes back to McMinn County again. So that was kind of the first step in just kind of moving beyond this. There was the rumors of the great Polk County invasion of 1946 because the sheriff of Polk County had been friends with Mansfield, and the rumor got out that all of the citizens of Polk County were going up Highway 411 to invade McMinn County and take it back over. It was so believable that they actually flew the editor of the Daily Post Athenian, our newspaper, down Highway 411 to make sure that the supposed invasion from Polk County did not happen. We're still waiting for them to get there, by the way. They never made it. But it just shows kind of how rumors and stuff, all the city governments resigned. The school boards resigned. You can see kind of how deep some of this, the tentacles ran from the machinery. Eleanor Roosevelt pens an op-ed piece in the New York Times about specifically this incident. She's a great Democrat leader, but she talks about how this is what happens when government fails to listen to its people. We kind of still are dealing with some of those issues today. But here's what came out of it, and this is what most people don't realize. County mayors, county executives, county commissioners did not exist back then. The reason we have that in Tennessee and throughout much of the South is because of this event. Right afterwards, this group of GIs formed a good government league. And they looked at those antiquated laws about sheriffs, and they looked at those antiquated laws and systems of government like the county court system, and they said that this doesn't work anymore. And so they set up in McMinn County an elected county council who hired a county manager as an executive to operate the county. That's challenged in, I think, in Chancery Court. But in the next year, the court looks at that and says that's constitutional. That's something we can do. And so in McMinn County, first is where you had your county, what became the county commission and the county mayor forms of government. And in 1982, I think it was 82, when the last vestiges of the county court system finally went away, and we got general sessions judges instead of county judges and things like that. The only person who got in trouble, even though all those guys shot the jail up and tried to run the sheriff off and did all these things, even though there was allegations of election fraud, the only guy that got in trouble was our good friend Wendy Williams. He went to prison for a little while for shooting Tom Gillespie. And I really don't know whatever happened. But there he is in the jail afterwards. And you can see he was not very well thought of at all. But that's it. That's the Battle of Athens in a nutshell. I needed to keep that moving best I could. Chris said I had a limited amount of time. So yes, sir.
Is that Ed Vestal Manufacturing by chance?
Yes, that's the same family.
I went to school with his son.
Oh, did you?
Sure
Okay.
did. Sure did.
Any other quick questions?
Did the black guy live?
The black guy? I'll tell you funny about that one. When he was taken out to the hospital, this added to all the tension. People began to say, "Did you hear what happened to Tom Gillespie? He was going in to vote, and the deputy shot him. Hey, did you hear what happened to Tom Gillespie? He was going in to vote, and he was putting his ballot in the box, and they shot him in the back. Did you hear what happened to Tom Gillespie? They killed him. Killed him.
Graveyard dead.
Tom Gillespie lived till 1983. He's an old man, and part of this came from interviews that he did years ago with our newspaper. So, no, he did not die. But thank you all very much.
Does the newspaper still bring that up from time to time, every 5 years or so, or every few years?
Well, we have been very hesitant to talk about it because there's so much respect between the different sides of this. The Cantrell, Wilson family are still very successful parts of our community. What happened, if I got a second, a guy came in right after this and wrote, his name was White. Some of you know who I'm talking about. He was a fairly famous columnist. Yeah, I think it was. And writes this story that was mostly right, but it offended a lot of folks in McMinn County. A few years later, a movie producer showed up and wanted to do a movie, but it was going to go in a weird direction, and so we just quit talking about it. Yeah. It's almost like a family fight that you may fit and fight among yourselves. Once you leave, you go outside, nobody talks about it anymore. And we didn't talk about it for 40 years.
Every few years or so, they write about it in the paper here. In 1919, there was a race riot in Knoxville, and it was really bad. It was bad, and supposedly there's still some bullet holes in some of the buildings in downtown, and they called in the National Guard. But every so often, the paper will still write about it.
Since we've been talking more about it, some folks have passed away. We do have a few more things in the newspaper.
I think we need a movie
A movie?
of McMinn, or however you call it.
There is one that's supposedly being looked at.
Okay.
Jacob?
Get something.
That guy used to be president of our club.
Similar, yeah.
Who Central.
Yeah.
Oh, Tim Kerbo.
Well, Sheriff, we certainly appreciate you coming up and sharing this. It's a fascinating story.
I understand that was Tim Kerbo's family that was going to invade
From Polk County.
from Polk County that was on the way to
Evidently
invade
somehow they
McMinn.
routed around and came up here.
I guarantee it was Kerbo.
Long road or something.
All right, do we have
I guarantee
a
it's perfect.
Sergeant at Arms report?